Hello and welcome to Chocolate and Cheese. My name is Dom and this is the lovely Lulu-san from Japan. That's right. That is the sound of your tummy, I believe. Mm-hmm. Lou has a bit of a tummy flu at the moment, so we do apologize for any kind of weird sounds that you might hear in the background. Now, having said that, today's show is about travel advice. That's right. We are going to give you some travel advice for going to Japan.
Nihon.
Yes, that's right. That's the home country of our lovely Lou. So she's actually...
Yokoso.
Yes, she's actually the total expert here. So that's quite good. So we're going to give you some advice of things not to do, because otherwise you're going to be committing what is called a social faux pas. You know, embarrassing things that are quite upsetting to the Japanese, possibly. And obviously we have you here, Lou, as an expert on Japan, expert of Japanese etiquette. So let's kick off straight away. I have heard, and this is really, really sweet, I love this, that in Japan you actually have Lulu shoes. This actually just makes me laugh every time I say it. Well, it's actually not your name, but actually the Lou, the toilet. You have toilet shoes in Japan.
Yeah, not every toilet has, but some of the building has got special toilet shoes.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's really interesting. You have this at home, I know, and in restaurants as well, meaning that, you see, when you go into an establishment, such as a restaurant, or even just a colleague's or friend's home, where you are supposed to wear shoes, I mean, house shoes, anyway. I mean, this is really one of the biggest things in Japan, really, really unusual for us, because we usually just go into our own homes with our street shoes. I mean, our own homes or friends' home, it's not a big deal. I mean, unless it's been chucking down, you know, it's been raining and snowing. But in Japan, even in the summer, you would take off your shoes and you would use slippers or house shoes, whatever you might want to call them. Now, you have even more shoes. For example, if you want to go to the toilet, you have the so-called, toilet shoes.
Slippers.
That's right. Slippers. Now, be aware of this, to actually use these when you go into the toilet, yeah? Now, what can happen, and this is what you have to be quite careful about, especially when you're in a restaurant, that if you take on these slippers to go to the toilet, you might forget when you come back into the restaurant, you know, where everybody's eating, and you're still wearing your toilet shoes. And people will probably know that you're doing that. I'm not quite sure whether they will pick it up, saying, well, actually, you're still wearing toilet shoes. It also puts them in a bit of an embarrassing situation. So be mindful when you go onto the toilet, you're wearing toilet shoes. So when you get out of the toilet, you have to change into your
shoes.
Leave them behind and just slip into your normal slippers. Okay, right. Then we have some more, and this is more for like generally going out and about in Japan. I've heard this before. I find it very curious. Blowing your nose in public. I mean, like using a handkerchief, using a tissue. It's not very acceptable, I have heard. Is that right, Lou? Blowing your nose.
That.
Okay, do that. Well, it's interesting. I mean, it might be a little bit to do with the older generation. That could be. But apparently, I've read this on several websites that to actually, you know, blow your stuff into that tissue is not seen as acceptable. You should do that. I mean, if you absolutely have to do it, then just do it very, very inconspicuously. But I see that's one of the reasons why people just, do other things. You know, they just wheeze, you know, or try to, hold it back really until they're in private, and then they can do it on their own. Yeah. You see, I mean, when I say in public, I mean in front of other people. Okay, so it's almost like, I mean, in our culture it would be unacceptable. I mean, I'm talking about Europe or America to, for example, burp or fart. I think is it maybe comparable to blowing your nose in public in Japan? Would you say that this is similar, maybe like that? That it's just so unacceptable?
But I have a problem nose.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay.
So I have to blow my nose.
That's right, yeah. But apparently you should really just do it in a private corner, you know, not directly at the table, which is kind of okay to do in Europe and America. You know, I mean, that wouldn't be
not so loud.
Big issue. No, that's right. I mean, very quietly. Absolutely. Another one, quite interestingly, business cards. big thing in Japan when somebody hands you a business card. I mean, when this happens, this happens sometimes, even obviously here in Europe, America, you take it and you just take it away. But it seems that in Japan you have to really appreciate the card, and it starts by the way that you're taking the card. How do you actually take the card when somebody gives you with both hands? You see, that is really a way of showing respect. It's really interesting. Also, when you accept money or when you give money, you're supposed to do that with both of your hands rather than just one. Is that right?
Take it, I think.
Okay, so you're more likely to, especially when it comes to like business cards, you were supposed to take it with two hands. Is that right? Okay.
There's a rule how to get it. I'm not sure, but yeah.
And then the other thing is, which is quite interesting. So you're supposed to take this with both hands, and obviously have a look at it, study it, and then very carefully place it into your wallet. By just examining it properly. So don't just have a look at it. Don't write on it. Don't fold it up. See all these kind of things. I can see Lou now. She's cringing when I say these things. So don't write on it. Don't fold it up. Just carefully place it into your wallet, and then it's that's acceptable.
Or Japanese people have business card case.
Business card case. That's right. Absolutely.
Or folder like.
Yeah, you have a business card holder. Absolutely, yeah.
You can locate it nicely.
That's right. Another one out and about, very interestingly, when it comes to giving gifts. So if you're invited into somebody's home, it might be a colleague, it might be friends. What you should avoid is, you can almost, give anything. Well, that's kind of hopefully appropriate. But apparently, Japanese people are quite sensitive to the number 4. So one should avoid to give anything that is a multiple of 4. Okay, so for example, maybe 4 flowers or 4 books. Why would one have to be so careful about this, Lou? Why would that be?
I don't know about that rule, but 4 means she, which is death.
That's right. That is actually the reason behind it. It conjures up the idea of death. The number 4 sounds or is similar to the number 4, and that's why one should really avoid to give gifts in multiples of 4. Or anything that related to the number 4. It's similar to our culture, the number 13, which is like bad luck. It's not as bad as in Japan because really the number 4 is so connected to the idea of death. So that would really raise some eyebrows, to say the least. Having said all this, it's quite interesting actually that Japanese people are generally, that's how they come across to me, is that they're very hospitable and actually quite forgiving. So even if you commit a social faux pas, if you are maybe a little bit inappropriate, they would know, yes, you are a foreigner, you're not so used to to their culture, so it's okay. But at the same time, I think it is useful to be prepared and know what is acceptable and rather unacceptable behavior. So I think that's the important issue. Now the last bits of advice, they're very much related to when you go out to restaurants, when it comes to eating outside. One thing I found very peculiar is when you eat soups, for example, noodle soups, and the way the Japanese people eat soups, especially the noises that are being made. What kind of noises am I talking about, Lou, here?
Noodle.
Yeah.
Eating noodle.
That's right, the slurping. Lou just making a slurping sound now. This is very good manners, by the way. This is very interesting. If you do this in a restaurant in Europe or in America, anywhere in the Western world, it's extremely rude to do. You're taught as a child. I know this from when I was brought up. It's just like you eating a child. You eat quietly. But in Japan, apparently, this is really showing of how much you enjoy the food. It's a compliment to the chef of whether
it's each other eating each other.
Yeah.
It sound makes noodle tastes better.
Yes, yeah. So it's really it enhances the enjoyment of the food.
Sounds, enjoying sounds.
So it's really so if you don't slurp, I mean, I'm not saying that this is rude, but it's just expected. People would like it if you slurp. So this is something you can practice at home in your own flat or room. But it's definitely something, and we're not making this up. This is not a joke. Slurping is very much accepted in Japan when you eat soup specifically. The other one, quite interesting actually, I didn't know this before, but it kind of makes sense. I've seen other people doing this, not necessarily in Japanese restaurants, or I've seen this in Chinese restaurants where I think maybe it's not such a big issue, but in Japan, it's a big no-no. It's when you eat your food, you eat your rice dish, and you have a little bit of a break, and people put their they put their chopsticks into the rice upright. I mean, that is standing up. I mean, that's such a big no-no. Why is that such a big issue for Japanese people, Lou?
That's for the dead people's food.
Okay, yeah. So again, it's something that reminds people of death. Is that right? Yeah. I mean, I've heard that this is basically how you offer rice to the deceased, so it's almost like an offering to people who have passed on to another life, and that's how you serve the rice, by putting the chopsticks there in an upright position for them to take. So this really conjures up the
awkward thing.
It conjures up the idea, of funerals of dead people. So a big no-no. When you are on a break from eating, you put your chopsticks.
And the chopsticks rest.
Yeah, there's a rest or a little holder. It's always there. You should put it on there. Absolutely.
Or you can make it like a bridge, put it on the bowls or.
That's right. You can also place it on top of the bowl. Absolutely. But I think the most acceptable one is on the holder. If it's not there, obviously on the bowl itself. That's right. Our last piece of advice, very interesting again. It's about tipping. You see, giving a nice tip, which is very common in Europe and obviously in America. We always tip our waitress. About 10%, 15%, depends where you are. But apparently in Japan, you don't tip at all.
We don't.
Yeah. So it would be what would happen if you actually do tip? What does it say? Is there some kind of message that it conveys if you were tipping? Why is this such a big no-no?
But if you are happy with the service, nothing wrong to give
Okay.
I think
I've heard this before, and I was kind of wondering whether it has something to do with the idea that it's almost like we are earning enough money. You don't have to give us I don't know, some kind of like a charitable behavior that is almost like you need probably some extra money because I think as a waiter you don't earn quite enough. Is that anything like that, or is it just?
I just never think like that.
Okay.
There's no tip.
Okay, no tipping. Okay, well that's actually quite good. It's actually also quite useful for people who are on a budget, So because don't forget, Japan is very, very expensive, especially if you go to Tokyo. So not having to tip saves you some money. I think that's always really, really nice. By the way, you don't tip anywhere. This isn't just restaurants. It's also in cabs, taxis, wherever. You do not tip. So it's great for when you're on a budget. So instead of tipping, you could just slurp a lot in the restaurant, and I think that would show how much you enjoyed it. So that the staff would appreciate that more than any kind of tip.
They might not accept though. I don't know. But,
okay. Yeah. So they wouldn't even take the money even if you had it. Fantastic. Lovely. So this is our travel advice for people who are thinking of going to Japan, maybe for leisure or maybe for as a business trip. We had quite a lot of tips for you there. If you know any others actually that we have missed, and I'm sure there are some other things that might be potentially seen as inappropriate behaviors, then let us know. We're always interested in that. Fantastic. Let me finish the show by asking you, Lou, do you actually know why Japanese people eat sushi? I mean, raw fish. Do you know?
Yeah, raw fish. Because fish is so fresh in Japan.
Yeah, that might be,
but
actually the reason why they eat fish is because they're so impatient they can't even wait for the fish to cook.